Stop wasting your hard-earned money on bone broth when you can make it yourself for pennies on the dollar. I'm willing to bet that you already have all of the ingredients that you need to start making bone broth. In this video, I will go through everything that I do to make an easy, delicious, no effort bone broth that will be a great addition to your family weeknight recipes. Not to mention, you're gonna avoid all of the added coloring, sugar, and whatever else they put in at the store. And you're also gonna be saving yourself a ton of money because bone broth is not cheap, but it sure is good for you and you can make it yourself at home. So just keep watching and let's learn how to make some good bone broth. For this recipe, I am just using some beef soup bones that I had from our full beef that we purchased about a year ago. But more often than not, I am just using scrap bones from when we have steaks or we have a rotisserie chicken that I pick up from Costco. Pretty much anything that has bones, I will throw in the freezer and save until we are able to do a batch of bone broth. So you definitely don't need to buy anything special to get the bones for the bone broth, because you likely already have it with things that you're making. Since these bones had not been previously cooked, I just threw them in the oven at 425 for about 45 minutes just to get some nice color on both the meat and the bones and get a nice caramelization start for our bone broth. Next, I am taking out 2 bags of frozen vegetables that I have put in the freezer, and these are all scraps from when I'm cooking. So if you have an end of an onion, the onion skins, the garlic skins, the carrot peelings, all of those things should be going into a freezer bag and saved for veggie broth for later. So this is where the cheaper and kind of affordable part of making your own broth comes in, because these are all scraps that, frankly, for me, before I started making broth, I was throwing out, but I was already buying. So this is where you can really save money with bone broth. Next, you want to cover the veggies and the bones with water, and you want to make sure you just cover enough so that the veggies are completely covered. And you may have to push them down a little bit since they'll be frozen, but you don't want to overfill it, otherwise you'll have a little bit of a diluted broth. Then go ahead and cover and bring it to a boil. And then we're going to add some apple cider vinegar to it, about 2 to 3 tablespoons. You really don't need a lot, but this is going to help us extract all of the nutrients from the bones and really make it the most nutritious bone broth that it can be. Then we drop it down to a simmer and just let it kind of do its thing for about 12 to 24 hours. And I usually just check on it, stir it every couple of hours as I can, just to get everything mixed around. But there's really not a lot of active time. You could totally throw this in a crock pot or into an Instapot. And then this is what it's going to look like pretty much towards the end. Look how much darker in color this has gotten. It is a really rich, deep brown, and it is so flavorful. So now we're going to remove the beef and bones from the broth, and I picked this apart and used it for soup. I've also made beef stroganoff with it. After it's been simmering for 12 to 24 hours, it is so tender and unbelievably delicious. Now we're going to strain out all of the veggies. I put this in just a regular colander with a bowl underneath, and I like to make sure that I am straining it with the veggies too, because it has so much liquid attached to the veggies. If you were just to take the veggies and put them right in the trash or compost, you're going to miss out on at least a cup full of broth. So just make sure that you're not wasting anything there. And as you can see, when I lift this up, there is a decent amount of broth underneath it before we even start to strain the rest of the broth. After I did the initial straining with the veggies, I poured the rest of the broth through the colander, and this is what we were left with. We had so much broth, I had to grab an extra bowl actually. And so then I took my funnel that I used for canning and I put it on a canning jar, and I just poured our broth in there. I probably made about, I would say maybe 12 cups or so. So if you think about that, that's about 3 of the store canisters. Typically there's 4 cups in a canister of broth that you buy from the store. And this cost me, I would say at most $3 to make, because I actually did buy that bone initially with our cow. However, most of the time it's pretty much free because I'm using bones and veggie scraps that we already have that we would have thrown out otherwise. And I really hope that you give this a try and save yourself some money. And if this was helpful for you, please let me know in the comments, subscribe, and share it with your friends.